Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, and welcome to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. Good to have you back. Hey, if you haven't done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. You're obviously listening to it. It's on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and really 30 different channels. Also, for the late breaking news here, if you haven't been to the website, realestatewithgarywilson.com, please feel free to go there, click on the member area, right? You go to the members page, left-hand side, you log in if you're already a member, right-hand side, if you're not a member, go in for free. It lets you in for 30 days to grab everything you can grab, 300 recordings on anything related to real estate, books, marketing campaigns, dozens of websites to research people and properties, and more importantly, a great database of what we call investor agents. These are agents who are trained to work with you and I. They're not traditional agents, guys. They know how to identify, attract, analyze, and negotiate the right properties from the right people. Half the time they're off market. So take advantage of that. Get yourself the right kind of partner that's critical to your business. And by the way, while we're talking about business, we got a great guest today. Gary Boomershine is on. So, hey, first off, Gary, welcome aboard from beautiful California.
It's a pleasure, Gary. Super excited about today.
Well, I'm excited too. I've been reading your information. We've had some great conversation, and I'm thrilled to have you on. I know we're lucky to have you on here. So, I think everybody listening, pull over, take notes, because this is going to be a head full of good, useful information. So let's go ahead. If we could start, Gary, with the first thing is I'm sure people are curious about who you are right now. So if you wouldn't mind, fill them in. Just give us a background. How did you get to where you are? And that'll be the context. We'll go into some case studies and some methodologies and things like that,
Yeah, no, great. My name is Gary Boomershine. I am in the current crazy state of California. I actually tell everybody it's with a capital K these days. Probably know where I stand on some of the politics, but a great state. I grew up, I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in real estate pretty much my whole life. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I'm mobile today, by the way, because I'm going to go pick up Mom in the Bay Area and bring her back.
Cool.
Second, you can hear.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. But I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad owned a residential real estate brokerage in the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area, and all of us kids were part of the business. We had a big rental pool, so I learned all about how to fix and flip and turn in, passive income with rentals. I actually, while everybody else was probably learning how to drive, I became a licensed agent 3 weeks after turning 18. And, but what's interesting is the whole .com Silicon Valley thing exploded. And I had some really good mentors. And I decided that I didn't really want to do the family business. I decided to get a computer engineering degree and do the corporate route. And so I did that for almost a decade. I'm 52. I've been married 27 years with 2 daughters. So from 1991 to 2004, I did the corporate route. I graduated at a UC Davis and got selected one of 2 people to go to the largest management and technology consulting firm in the world that's called Accenture. And I was there for 5 years on a partner track. It was absolutely awesome. I got to travel all over the world and work 90-hour weeks and never see the light of day. I decided to get out of the swapping hours for money and that rat race and decided to get into enterprise software sales, which is the big ticket stuff, selling to Fortune 500. And I'm like, hey, this is going to be a cushy job. I'm going to be selling and a sales guy. What I realized is I went from the countertop to the frying pan really fast. And it was an amazing experience. I did 4 technology startups, one that actually went public. And we raised $160 million. I was employee 12. And I had the whole up and down IBM actually bought us, and they're now a $5 billion division of IBM. But it was 2004, Gary. I probably had gray hair at that particular time. And we had two babies. We had a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old. And my wife and I said, enough's enough. Let's go back to our roots. And so I did something that I do not recommend to any of your listeners. We went cold turkey. So both of us had quit our corporate jobs. We had 2 babies and a $700,000 mortgage, and decided to go full-time real estate investing. And I'll tell you, I'm a faith-based guy. And if it wasn't from just pure divine intervention, the first deal we ended up making $180,000 on. It was a 5-hour drive. It's a great story. I've shared it many times on stage, but we never looked back. So today, I love real estate. I've learned a lot. I'm super passionate about sharing the things of what not to do because I made all the mistakes. And here's what I can say. After doing, I'm not a bragging type of person, so I usually stop. I've done at least 500 transactions. I bought probably every type of property. Right now, I'm all about passive income. Yep. I think that real estate, everybody that I've coached, and I'll tell everybody about the company I run the largest marketing company in the real estate niche for investors and agents called realestateinvestor.com. We've done over 90 pieces of direct mail, very focused on off-market sellers, typically properties that burned out landlords and inherited properties, and a huge phone team that does all the screening and qualifying along with software. But after coaching people, including myself, and having good coaches, here's what I've learned. People get into real estate for a life and for financial freedom. And it's an incredible vehicle. However, a lot of people get lost along the way, and they do nothing but remanifest a job, a job. And so I always teach people, you want to focus on the why and the what, not the how, because everybody gets into the how. And you want to understand, why do you want real estate and what do you want real estate to do for you? And then be very focused on the passive income. There's 3 buckets: cash now, cash flow, and cash later. And don't just get focused on the cash now, because you can get lost. It's a job, just over broke.
Yep, that's right. Well, that's quite a story. By the way, you and I have a lot more in common than we even realized from before when we were talking. And I also have a degree in computer science and retired when I was 40. That was 2003. And I just basically said, I'm out of here. Bye. And much more story than that to it. But, everybody listening, if you're still in the corporate world, just have faith. I'm telling you, when the greatest move you could ever make, and I'm not saying do this today. We should probably talk if you're thinking of doing this. But when you actually, you don't have a plan B, when plan B is plan A, when you have to succeed, I'm telling you, you will do what it takes to succeed. I would rather work my butt off for 3 years to get to where I want to go than do it, tiptoeing my toes in the water for 10 years and never actually get there. I've learned that lesson early on. And Gary, and by the way, it's not just because we're both named Gary. Good to be Gary. But it's it really is. It takes faith, takes commitment, and being persistent, consistent, disciplined. All those things that everybody has inside of them. The best way to bring them out is to put yourself to the task, commit yourself, and I promise you, you will develop whatever knowledge and skill you need to succeed. So the other thing, Gary, too, just a little side note here. See, in my family and friends, when they say, hey, you're getting more gray hair, I said, no, I'm not. I'm getting more blonde. It's just getting blonder. That's what it is. So.
Well, I actually cut the gray out, which is kind of funny. I literally cut my own hair, and my wife laughs, and I'm like, it's just a reminder of being humble and remember our beginnings.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, so many people are chasing this pot of gold.
Right.
And Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, interesting book, loved it, but it was one of the things that inspired me. But people forget the definition of wealthy is when your passive income, mailbox money, is
Yep.
greater than your living expenses. And most of us, we don't need that much. So a lot of
Right.
people are like, oh, I need $2 million or $5 million or $20 million in the bank account. And I'm telling you, that's a trap. That's a deception. All we need to do is build enough income to cover our expenses. That might be 10 grand a month. It might be 20. And real estate is a wonderful vehicle. I look at all of the deals that I've done, and for the most part, so many of them, I regret selling the property. I had one, and when I went full time, I'll just tell a quick story. In Palo Alto, which is Stanford University, it's the heart of Silicon Valley. I ended up finding a property. It was a total rehab, but I ended up picking it up for $622, and I ended up flipping it for $785. This is back in 2005.
Okay.
And we needed the money, right? I needed the cash now because I didn't have any of the passive income and I didn't have a job on the side. And that property today would be a teardown for probably $4 million. So
Wow.
I just tell everybody, real estate is a long-term gain.
Yes.
It's a long-term game. And so many people don't realize a true real estate investor is Warren Buffett's definition. I like that,
Yes.
which is somebody that has some money. They buy a physical asset that is the asset class is real estate, whatever it is. And
Yep.
then they hold it for the long haul and they take all the advantages. There's an acronym called IDEAL. I won't go into it. But a lot of people that are flipping or agents, it's transactional based. You're a business operator. It's a real estate business operator. If you're fixing, wholesaling, rehabbing real estate, and just realize that takes a CEO. Every business takes a CEO. And if you're a CEO doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So you need to basically know what business that you're in and learn from experts. There's nothing new under the sun in this business. Don't reinvent the wheel. You find what works, replicate it, and then once you start getting it down and it's working, then you can make it better as your own. But a lot of people, they go this way and they go this way,
Yeah.
and they act like a little third grader. So that would be and by the way, the reason I say that is that's what I did for probably the first 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do it my way. No, just replicate, follow the experts, and replicate what they do.
Yeah. It was interesting in our business and real estate investing. I started off January 20th, 1986. I just graduated college the month before. I was a December graduate. And so I just turned 23 on January 5th, and my college roommates named Socrates, his father was a Greek immigrant. He helped us buy the first house. And this was back in, of course, 86 Tax Reform Act of 86 would come out. So we were just young kids, and we took advantage of the fact that a lot of self-employed people were losing their loopholes, right? And they were then selling their real estate. So we got our first property, and the rest they say is history. But what I want to tell people is this I bought a lot of properties over the years, hundreds of them. And I've had a couple doozies. They weren't all great shining examples, but I will tell you this. I had never regretted buying any one of them, but I always regretted the ones I sold because of what you just said. I mean, years later, you're looking like, good Lord, what was I thinking? Why did I hang on to it? So it is a long-term game. And I tell you what, the clock goes fast, and you may think 15 years is a long time. It is not. When you own these properties outright, guys, and you get on a cash basis, like Gary and I, we're on a cash basis, debt free. I can't begin to tell you what that freedom feels like. It's true financial freedom. And it allows you to have so much other freedom in life, freedom to travel where you want to travel, live where you want to live. I can literally work from anywhere I want to, anywhere in the world. It does not matter. I'm not geographically bound like I used to be. So have faith. And if we could, Gary, let's talk a little bit about, you've got an interesting situation here because you came from the Bay Area, you're now out in the foothills of Yosemite, completely different market, but yet you didn't vacate California. You love California, and I do too. You managed to find a market that works for you. And we used to call it the sunshine tax. Why do you pay so much taxes in California? Well, it's paradise. That's why. You got to pay for paradise. But if you could give us an example of maybe something you picked up recently or when you moved out to the foothills, because I want people to realize there are still opportunities out there. There always has been. There always will be. The market never sits still. It's always moving. So if you wouldn't mind, if you had to change names and things to protect the innocent, I understand, but a case study would help,
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to give everybody, I'm in California. I've been real estate has been something I've been involved in, but I want to share something. I've had a podcast for probably the last 4 years for your listeners so they understand where I'm coming from. Real estate has been a cycle. Real estate has been a 7-year cycle for 100 years, actually to the day, if you go and you look at it. It just happens that this cycle has gone longer than ever in history. I think we're at almost year 13. And the change in that cycle has actually happened. I've been calling it for probably 5 years, a boogeyman event. It's just a term that I use, which means not a natural supply and demand. We had 9/11, we had the mortgage collapse, we had the oil embargo, so different wars, etc. And so real estate has always followed a very, very consistent cycle. And so my wife and I, I'm 52, 2 daughters, and we put together our plan and said that we wanted to be completely debt-free. We had a big mortgage and a lot of property. We had a property in Maui as an example that we loved. And when all this stuff happened, we kind of said, you know what, let's expedite the splat. And we decided to unload everything and get into, I'm heavily into lending. I love first position lending. We decided, because of the real estate market in the Bay Area, to unload the portfolio, get completely debt-free, keep it in real estate, and we were going to move out of the state completely. We were on our way out. So anyway, we ended up near Yosemite, about 3 hours from San Francisco. It feels like, the Midwest, except with the snow and the weather. And so we said, we're going to stay here. We love it. And I'm back at my game. So in the last 4 weeks, we've picked up 3 new properties. And I do a lot of first position lending. As conservative as you get, I get about 8.5% to 9% interest on property that is usually like 30 to 40 to 50% of the purchase price or of the value. So I'm doing a lot of that. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it for passive income, and it's also a little bit of a hedge against a downturn. I think we may see a downturn here for a short blip, followed by massive appreciation. So I want to be in real estate long term. I just think that a lot of people, they may get stuck for a window. And the thing is that you should know about real estate is that a lot of people do not have the operating capital, right? If things go sideways, like, people stop paying rents again. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of reserves. So we unloaded and put our money into first position mortgages all over the place. And now we're starting to buy again. So I bought 3 properties. One, it was actually a property I got dirt cheap, probably 50 cents on the dollar in California, and it had a bad tenant. So the tenant had not been paying, and anybody that knows California, you couldn't get tenants out unless you're buying the property. So picked up 1 property, wonderful story, got the tenant out, no problem. And we're going to probably turn that for maybe a $60,000 profit without doing any work. It needs a lot of work, and I don't want to do the rehab. We'll just put it into something else. I bought a second property that my kids are involved in, turning it into an Airbnb. I love the Airbnb market right now. We're near a ski resort, 20 minutes, and we probably will end up getting about a 9% cash-on-cash return with literally no work. And we've done this before. Even remotely, we have a property in Maui. We were generating over $120,000 in income with almost no work on that property. A third property, which is really interesting, is the owner sold the property about $50,000 below market. She is owner financing 90% at 2% interest. So I couldn't pass on that. And this is a seller that actually wanted. She's 75. She is a guardian for her great-granddaughter who was born in a drug addiction. situation, and she's got a lot of property, and she was looking for somebody she just doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. And so I was able to be the perfect solution for her. I buy a lot of owner financing properties, sometimes 0 interest, sometimes 2% interest, but a 30-year term. So that small property, a $325,000 property purchase price, and I'll cash flow it maybe with $35,000 into it. I should make about $1,500 a month.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. If you look at, I think that's like a 50% cash on cash return, annualized. So, real estate, it's like, for me, from my perspective, I like going off market. One of the properties was on market, but off market means go direct to the seller because we're good at it. A lot of stuff in California, is overbid like crazy. And I like to just go find this stuff direct from the seller and find all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about going directly to the seller, and we on our team, one of the techniques we teach our agents is to do the research first. We always start with education, number one. We educate first, agents and the investors, then we provide the information. And with the education, they know how to use the information. And the third step is making correct decisions. So right now, what we're doing is we're doing the research, but instead of using traditional marketing techniques to find the owners of the properties that may want to sell, they're just not actively selling. We have enough information out with all the tools we have. Like we access every single parcel in the entire country. Doesn't matter if it's residential, commercial. We know the owners, how much debt they have, who they have the debt with, how long they've owned the property, if they're current with their property taxes, if they have vacancies. We know all these things. So what we do is we actually make unsolicited offers. We actually literally make a full-blown, not a letter of intent, I mean a complete written agreement with proof of funds, the whole 9 yards, And it does two things. Number one is because it's off market, you don't have to worry about 5 other people bidding on the same property. You don't have to waive all the contingencies. And for the agent, they collect, from both sides, both sides of the transaction. You work it into the deal. And it's just it's much more sane way to go about business. It sounds crazy. Like, well, what do people think when they receive this thing? I'm like, well, they're probably shocked initially, but then the good investors are thinking, I like this guy's style. Nobody else has done this with me before. We got a lifetime client. So now as far as the how you're identifying, is it like, are you using county records, or do you have using bird dogs? Everybody's got their own secret sauce. And, if you're willing to share, like one of your favorite methods for property identification. And that's one big question I always get. Well, Gary, there's nothing out there. I'm like, sure there is. There's more properties today than there were yesterday, the day before. It's just identifying them, So do you have anything that you are able to share? I think you'd make a lot of friends, by
yeah. So, it's one area I'm an absolute subject matter expert on is basically the data. My background's in data, and also how to find the diamond in the rough, primarily targeting direct response marketing for these off-market deals. So a little background, we've done over 90 million pieces of direct mail, including the offer packages that go out. So the offer package that you have, I have a 6-page offer package that goes out electronically with two contracts, actually signed contracts in them, that we've been doing for years, invented that about 7 years ago, and postcards, letters, handwritten stuff, you name it. I think we've tested and split tested over 300 different pieces, and then a large phone team with the perfect script of what are the perfect words in the right order to have a conversation with the seller. We'll talk about all that if you'd like. Let me tell you, so data, there's on market, off market. Off market means you have to go direct to the seller. And how do you do it? You can cold call them, you can text them, you can door knock them, you could put a newspaper ad, et cetera. You can actually do more broadcast marketing or radio. But what I have found is I like going direct to the seller, because if you know how to do it, there is a secret sauce. It's called the 6 M's. And if you understand it, most of you don't really worry about the competition. It's a numbers game. So it's how much do I spend? to produce enough leads to generate one deal. And there's a total formula for it. And it's time tested and it hasn't changed in a decade, except the cost. Like in California, it costs more money than it does in Pennsylvania. The list, so the 6 M's, the first is the market. And I'll go through a few. The market is the list. It is the targeted list of names and addresses. And what's interesting is you can't just go to the county recorder or First American Title Core Logic and just buy a list. It's saturated. It's like, it's like going hunting and being blindfolded and shooting in the air and expecting to hit a bird. Yeah. So what we have found through all of our research is there is a very specific list that's 18 million properties. So we have 112 million properties in the United States that we can all get access, and about 18 million of those properties are what we would call inherited, mostly burned out landlords, and mostly free and clear, very little debt. And most people, we call this list, it's proprietary, we build it. We actually have the data providers because we're doing this for a very large group of hybrid agents and investors. We can buy data that nobody else can. Yeah. And it goes through an algorithm to get it. But what it is, most of these people have owned the property prior to 1982. So when people go out and they're pulling a mailing list, usually they'll put the last sale date. They'll look for absentee owner, meaning they don't live there, and then they'll put the last sale date before 2004. Well, what's interesting is most of the sale dates are blank. So you've lost all the gems. And so the only way to do it is you have to go buy the entire list, and then you have to go through the algorithm to clean it down. You can't just go click some buttons.
Right.
So we love people say, oh, direct mail, it's too expensive, it doesn't work. It's like, perfect. You're doing the wrong thing.
That's right.
And properties, these are mostly older people. They may have inherited the property. Only 54% of the properties are really retail grade properties. So there's a very large number of properties that need work. Maybe they have a tenant in there that's paying or not paying. And so usually to get a really good price, we're finding these little nuggets, and sometimes we're exchanging the solution for a problem. Like, they don't want to, maybe I bought a house this last year from a lady that was a hoarder. And every day she had FedEx and UPS show up with 20 boxes. And when I got into the house, there was no walking room. She was,
right.
If you looked at the front of her house, it was a multi-million-dollar house, but inside it was a disaster. And so I was able to buy that direct. None of the neighbors would know. And I actually had a service to come and help her do all the packing and moving.
Wow.
And I got a great discount because of it. So then what I like is I do like to use direct mail, and I'll, if it's done right. And what's really interesting is I have a lot of these hybrid agents that most agents don't do direct mail. They do farming to their little farming list because they've been told it doesn't work. Well, I've been servicing investors for over a decade, including myself, and it's this whole little, a different group of people. And I was actually on stage in New York City where one of the agent teams, it was actually the TV and the what do they call them? The TV, the big TV guys that have, anyway.
TV Ameritrade?
What they were, no, it was, it should come to me. It's, anyway, what I found out is one of the guys on stage who is Team Lolly in Hawaii basically said that we were their secret weapon, because usually when investors are doing direct mail, only about 10% of the leads are really investor leads, properties that need a lot of work, right, for rehab. 90% are really listings. And so all of a sudden over the last probably 3 years, these hybrid agents that actually want to get listings but also want to build a portfolio have been coming to us, because our marketing will generate opportunities that are off market, and these agents are coming in and saying, hey, I can actually buy your property for all cash right now, or if you'd like, I could possibly list it for you, and here's what we think that we should be able to get. And so they're able to beat out their agent competition in droves because they're coming in with a solution, and it's a multiple offer strategy. So most agents come in and they're competing with 10 other agents offering the same service. And now all of a sudden you come in, you can say, look, I could buy the property as is for all cash. We can close in 21 days. You don't have to do any work or anything, and you'll net 150,000 all cash. Or if I list it and you do a little bit of work, or you do a lot of work, I think we could probably, after commissions and things, we can net you higher. And what we're finding is a lot of those sellers don't want to have open houses, and with COVID and the COVID thing. And so it's a wonderful niche. So anyway, I probably covered a lot here, but the data is super important, and you just can't go buy a mailing list and expect it to work.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. We've done a lot of direct mailing too. I mean, we've tried a number of different things. We've had postcards that work well, certain batches, brochures, pamphlets, but really there's letters we use. And people say, oh, you mean yellow letters? So no, not yellow letters. People are up on yellow letters. That's for the last generation, people, if they see that, they recognize it. So these are actual mechanically reproduced handwritten letters. You can't tell because it's mechanical. It's not digital. It's not like a digital image. So in any case, we do that, and we found out over the years, the shorter we made it, the higher the response rate. We just get right to the point, and we're not talking about all our credentials. They don't care about all that stuff, and and everything in there is all about. There's no I, me. It's all you, and your. And I learned a valuable lesson from a guy named Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, guy up in Toronto. And he said, use the word you or your early and often. If you really want to get people's attention, you and your early and often. And that one little 7-sentence paragraph we use it 10 times. And it was the greatest response we've had neighborhoods, we literally would get 50% response rate. 50, most of them are 3%. We've had lots of neighborhoods, 18%, 24%, just amazing. But it's because we use the data. You talked about that. The data is key, guys. Get the data. If you're a full-time dentist, you don't have time for this. This is why you reach out to people like Gary. We're both Gary, so you take your pick. But
I'll give something to everybody.
Okay.
I'd love to share. I have my new book coming out as well. It's called The Freedom Code. I'd love to, but I put together what I call, after 90 million pieces of mail, a definitive guide of doing the direct mail and the marketing and everything I've learned. And I will give it to everybody. It's a guide. I'll give you a couple of examples. I will outproduce any realtor's marketing piece by probably 5-1 on response rate alone.
Nice.
And the reason is it's the list, but equally is the marketing. So it's marketing, it's the message. Most agents put color and branding and logos, and it doesn't work.
Yep.
It's about the copy, it's the words. So we use a canary yellow postcard. I'll outproduce any letter, all right, by a postcard that just has the right copy to the right list.
Yes.
And here's a couple things. It needs to be canary yellow. You don't want to. We've tried probably pink and everything else and white. It's the right font. It needs to be at least 110-pound paper, and it needs to be a true 4x6, because most everybody else who's marketing will go for a little cheaper cost, but the printers will cut the paper down. And so if a seller gets 5 or 6 pieces or 10 pieces, you want something that stands out, and it's the right copy. If you're using an envelope and you're putting a letter into it, I have something that's called the golden letter. I didn't invent it. I basically find I have one of the agent teams that's with Keller Williams, and they have a golden letter that we have and that we have the ability of reusing. And it has one sentence. It's handwritten and it's one sentence. Here's the trick. The envelope needs to be handwritten. It needs to look like
Yes.
it's handwritten. I'll tell everybody red ink outproduces blue ink almost by like 30 to 35%, just the ink color alone, and no branding or anything. Very simple wording. You want to get to the point. A lot of these sellers don't, this whole world right now is fake and full of lies. And people, especially the older people are, 50 and older. I'm probably one of those old people now, but they're tired of it. They just want straightforward, and the message needs to resonate.
Right.
So we have a postcard that we call our 1031 exchange. And actually it was created from a guy on the East Coast out of Maryland who buys 200 to 300 properties a year. But the copy, this particular one, there's a couple of very interesting things, but it basically says that I've recently sold a couple of other properties and I'm looking to utilize the proceeds for another. So it's a 1031 message. And for burned out landlords, they like that because they get a lot of junk mail and solicitations, and they're talking to somebody that's a true investor or a true agent. And so, I'll give you another example for an agent using wording like, I have a buyer that's interested in buying your property. It might be your LLC. It might be one of your clients. But one sentence will outproduce a whole letter.
Yep.
By a long shot.
Yeah.
Next thing I will let everybody know is the follow-up on marketing. Marketing is to generate leads. It's a response. Somebody puts up their hand. But the relationship has to be built.
Right.
So here's an interesting statistic. It's an average of 12 follow-ups. So 80%, 85% of the profits or the deals come after the 12th interaction or follow-up, and less than 10% of agents or investors ever follow up more than twice.
Yep.
So you don't want to do marketing unless you have the system, an automated system to stay in contact with people, and you need to have both. So that's the secret sauce. We actually provide realestateinvestor.com. We provide that full service, the solution to the agent and the investors, because you need to do the marketing, but you need to have that phone team and the follow-up that's ongoing for the long term, with the right words at the right time, right, with the right seller.
Yeah.
And you got to get those things right.
Yeah. What's interesting is for about 6 years, or 5 to 6 years, this is going back a couple of years now, I literally traveled the country teaching that technique: handwritten envelope, short handwritten letter, no branding, get rid of the letterhead, get rid of all the designations, get rid of all that crap. And it also has to be handwritten. I taught that for years it was over 600 Keller Williams offices, and in some Remax, Berkshire Hathaway, Exit Realty, Century 21. But I'm pretty sure the team you were talking about, I bet I know who they are. We probably shouldn't mention names on a podcast, but
out of Omaha.
Yep. So,
and they're good guys. I won't mention their name either.
Yeah.
I'm super good friends with them. He was the number one team for Berkshire Hathaway and moved over to Keller. But they buy about 130 houses a year in Omaha. Yep. They teach people how to do that. And it was interesting because I was speaking at their event a few months ago in Omaha, and they actually showed their numbers. And it was almost 60% of their deals had come from us, and I didn't even know it. But
nice.
The trick is good marketing, but
right.
Good marketing, good effective marketing with following the secret sauce and a good follow-up system and team, and it works. Because a lot of people, you don't want to be licking stamps, you don't want to be trying to write your own copy. You don't want to be doing all the follow-up. You want a team to do that. That's $10 an hour work. And I'll give a couple of other interesting things. A lot of people get stuck on postcard cost or list cost. And what I tell everybody is, if you were able to buy one piece of gold, what is that, $1,800? And that one piece of gold would be mailed out to one person. And every time you did the one piece of gold, you got a deal. do you really care about the fact that it's $1,800? It's
Right.
all about the cost per deal. So, in California, as an example, you're going to probably spend about $7,000 to $8,000, $9,000 a deal, which will generate enough people to put their hand up that are any good that you can actually make offers to and close one deal. It's just a total numbers game. In Pennsylvania, it's probably somewhere between $800 and $1,200, right? The return on investment, though, the numbers usually are pretty consistent in terms of what the ROI is. So be focused on the cost. I'm in an area, and for those people that want to do this, this is important. I'm in an area 3 hours out of the most crazy market in probably the country, in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yep.
A couple of counties away, and my phone is off the hook off of marketing. My average cost is probably $2,200 a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the sellers say they've never actually ever received an investor postcard or letter in the 25, 30 years. I'm in an area called Tuolumne County, Calaveras County, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Lower priced house, right, than the Bay Area. But so my message to everybody is what's working right now for doing direct mail is usually 2 to 3 counties outside of the Metroplex. So if you're in an area like Dallas, right, Dallas is very saturated. You got a lot of people because of the particular peak in the market, because we got BlackRock and State Street and all these funds, in China buying all our property in the U.S. What we're finding is outside a few counties, an hour outside of the major metroplex, is where it's working great. So, like, I don't do marketing in the San Francisco Bay Area just for that reason. The cost per deal, I'd rather buy from a wholesaler or somebody else that's got the property and not have to do all the work.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been a lot of information. I know we're probably going over a little bit, but hopefully everybody hung in there because you got some good nuggets at the end, guys. So, Gary, is there anything else we can tell people, direct them your way? We'll put stuff in the show notes, everybody can see it. But websites. So I got realestateinvestor.com. You got a podcast we're going to start up again sometime in the near future. Let's see. Anything else I can think of?
Yeah, I have my book. This has been on my bucket list for a decade. I finally completed it. It's going to be out here in a handful of weeks, called The Freedom Code. I wanted it as a disruptor. It's the Freedom Code. I'd love to give whoever is interested a free copy. I'd love feedback when it comes out. And I've got a whole bunch of other free stuff. I actually set this up a while ago and people said this was fantastic, so I'm repeating it. On how to build a business that works for you. It was a presentation right before COVID with a bunch of tools on real estate. It's really financial freedom and not becoming a slave to it, that it's a vehicle for you. And that website that you can go get all that stuff is realestateinvestor.com /growth, GROWTH. And, if you are a hybrid agent or an investor and you're looking for off-market deals and we can help you in any way, we got a really great team. I've got over 100 people spread across 3 continents, and we're very focused. We love helping people and love seeing the results and seeing people break through. So that would be at realestateinvestor.com, and love to chat with you if we can help in any way.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all the time you gave us and all the abundance of golden nuggets. And everybody listening, just to repeat here. So the book is The Freedom Code. We'll put that in the link in the show notes. Realestateinvestor.com /growth. Okay. And Gary Boomershine that's Gary's last name. So in any case, make sure, please also, when you listen to the podcast, please do a review. It'll help Gary. It'll help both Garys. But it's the way we do things in a podcast business is we ask you to leave reviews. If you like what you listen to, put it out there. We'd love to hear it. If it's something you want to see differently, please let us know that too. Also, be sure, go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, go to the members area, go in there and grab all the stuff you can get for free for 30 days, okay? And also grab yourself one of these trained investor agents who know how to work with you. So Gary and I are going to be working on some of that in the future. We'll have some more information for you. But in the meantime, God bless you and your families. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.